Money is one of the most powerful forces in the modern world. It shapes decisions, relationships, dreams, and fears. It determines where we live, what we pursue, how secure we feel, and sometimes even how we see ourselves. And yet, when it comes to money, many Christians are confused. Some believe money is inherently evil. Others quietly believe wealth is a sign of God's favor. Some feel guilty for wanting financial stability. Others chase it relentlessly while trying to keep their faith intact. But what did Jesus actually say about money? Not what culture says. Not what prosperity trends say. Not what fear says. What did Jesus really teach? The truth is, Jesus talked about money more than many people realize. Not because money itself was the goal, but because money reveals something deeper. It exposes the heart. It reveals trust. It uncovers what truly rules us. And if we misunderstand his words about money, we risk misunderstanding discipleship itself. So let's look carefully at 5 things Jesus said about money that most people ignore. And by the end, you may see your finances, your ambitions, and even your anxieties differently. The first thing Jesus said is direct and uncomfortable. You cannot serve both God and money. Notice he did not say money is evil. He did not say having money is sinful. He said you cannot serve both. The issue is not possession. The issue is devotion. Money becomes dangerous when it moves from tool to master. A tool serves you. A master controls you. Ask yourself honestly, when financial decisions arise, who has the final authority? Is it prayerful conviction or fear of losing comfort? Is it generosity or obsession with accumulation? Jesus frames money not as currency, but as a rival god, because money promises what only God can truly give: security, identity, control. When your peace rises and falls with your bank balance, money is no longer a resource. It is a ruler, and Jesus makes it clear. Divided allegiance is impossible. One will shape your values. One will define your trust. The second statement goes even deeper. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Most people assume their money follows their heart. Jesus says the opposite. Your heart follows your treasure. What you invest in, you begin to love. What you fund, you begin to protect. What you prioritize financially slowly becomes emotionally central. This is why generosity is not just charity. It is spiritual formation. When you give towards something eternal, your heart stretches toward eternity. When you spend entirely on self-preservation and image building, your heart shrinks toward temporary things. If someone analyzed your spending habits without hearing your words, what would they conclude about what you worship? This is not about guilt. It is about alignment. Jesus exposes a spiritual law. Treasure directs affection. If you want your heart closer to God, your resources must follow that direction. The third thing Jesus said challenges modern identity. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. We live in a culture that measures success externally. Bigger homes, newer cars, curated lifestyles, visible upgrades. Even minimalism can become an aesthetic competition. But Jesus dismantles the illusion that life equals accumulation. You can increase your possessions without increasing your peace. You can expand your assets while shrinking your joy. Possessions promise satisfaction, but they quietly increase appetite. The more you have, the more you fear losing. The more you gain, the more you compare. And comparison is a thief of gratitude. Jesus is not condemning ownership. He is redefining life. Real life, abundant life, is relational, spiritual, eternal. When possessions become proof of worth, anxiety follows closely behind. Because now your identity is fragile. It depends on maintaining an image. But if your life is rooted in God, possessions lose their power to define you. Then we encounter one of the most sobering moments in the Gospels, the rich young ruler, a man who was moral, disciplined, spiritually curious. He approached Jesus sincerely and asked what he must do to inherit eternal life. He had kept commandments. He had lived uprightly. But Jesus saw what he could not see, the one attachment that ruled his heart. Sell what you have, give to the poor, and follow me. The text says the man went away sad, because he had great wealth. Notice, Jesus did not give this command to everyone. He targeted the idle. For this man, money was not just money. It was identity, security, status. Letting it go felt like losing himself. And that is precisely the point. Whatever you cannot release owns you. Whatever you defend at the cost of obedience has become your master. This story is not a universal command to poverty. It is a universal warning about attachment. If Jesus asked you to surrender something for the sake of deeper trust, what would cause you to walk away grieving? The fifth teaching feels almost paradoxical in a world driven by acquisition. It is more blessed to give than to receive. This challenges the core assumption of modern economics, which equates gain with happiness. But Jesus introduces a different equation. Blessing is not measured by what you hold, but by what you release. Giving shifts your posture from scarcity to trust. It declares, my provision does not originate from my grip. Generosity weakens the power of greed. It retrains the heart to rely on God rather than accumulation. And here is the irony. Those who cling tightly to money often feel perpetually anxious, while those who give freely often experience surprising freedom. Because generosity disrupts fear, it breaks the illusion that everything depends on you. Now pause and consider something. None of these teachings condemn work. None of them shame ambition. None of them forbid stewardship. The problem Jesus addresses is misplaced trust. Money amplifies whatever already exists in the heart. If your heart is insecure, money becomes armor. If your heart is prideful, money becomes proof. If your heart is fearful, money becomes a safety net. But if your heart is surrendered, money becomes a servant for good. The same currency can either bind or bless, depending on who sits on the throne of your life. This is why financial anxiety is so common. It is not just about numbers. It is about control. When markets fluctuate, when expenses rise, when uncertainty increases, the deeper fear surfaces. Will I be okay? And underneath that question lies another. Is God enough? Jesus consistently redirected attention away from stockpiling and toward trust. He spoke of daily bread, not lifetime guarantees. He spoke of seeking first the kingdom, not securing every contingency. That does not mean recklessness. It means priorities. When you prioritize the kingdom, you align your life with eternal values. And strangely, anxiety begins to loosen its grip. Think about how subtle this can be. You may pray. You may attend church. You may serve faithfully. But if your mood collapses with financial instability, it reveals what you truly lean on. Again, this is not condemnation. It is awareness. Jesus exposes the hidden loyalties of the heart not to shame us, but to free us. Because serving money is exhausting. It demands constant vigilance. It whispers, more, just a little more. It never says enough. God, on the other hand, invites trust. Trust that He sees. Trust that He provides. Trust that your worth is not negotiable based on income. Consider this. If money disappeared tomorrow, would your identity collapse with it? If your lifestyle changed, would your sense of value crumble? These are uncomfortable questions, but they reveal spiritual anchors. When Jesus says you cannot serve both God and money, He is not restricting joy. He is protecting it. Because divided loyalty fractures the soul. You end up constantly negotiating between generosity and fear, obedience and self-protection. The beauty of Jesus' teaching is that it brings clarity. Money is not the enemy. Misplaced worship is. Wealth is not the sin. Attachment is. Provision is not wrong. Dependence on provision instead of the provider is the danger. When you understand this, you are free to work diligently without worshipping income. You are free to save wisely without idolizing security. You are free to give generously without fearing loss. Because your confidence rests somewhere deeper. Imagine living financially without constant anxiety. Not because you are wealthy, but because you are anchored. Imagine making decisions not driven by comparison, but by conviction. Imagine seeing money as a means to reflect God's generosity rather than a measure of your importance. This is the freedom Jesus invites us into. A freedom where money has influence but not authority. Where possessions are enjoyed but not exalted. Where generosity flows not from abundance alone, but from trust. At the end of the day, money reveals who you believe sustains you. If you believe you sustain yourself, you will cling tightly. If you believe God sustains you, you will hold loosely. And holding loosely does not mean irresponsibility. It means perspective. It means remembering that everything you have is temporary stewardship, not permanent ownership. So here is the deeper question behind everything Jesus said about money. Who do you trust? Not theoretically, practically, when opportunity and obedience collide, which wins? When generosity feels costly, what voice do you follow? When fear whispers that there won't be enough, whose promise do you believe? Money is powerful because it touches nearly every area of life. But it was never meant to rule your heart. Jesus did not come to restrict your prosperity. He came to free you from slavery, including financial slavery. And sometimes the most invisible chains are the ones disguised as security. If today you feel financial pressure, remember this: your peace does not have to fluctuate with your income. Your identity is not calculated by your net worth. Your future is not solely dependent on your forecasting ability. The same God who calls you to wisdom also calls you to trust. And when trust grows, fear loses authority. Take a moment and reflect honestly. Is money your servant or your master? Does it expand your generosity or increase your anxiety? Does it strengthen your faith or compete with it? The words of Jesus are not outdated economic advice. They are spiritual diagnostics. They reveal where your heart is anchored. If you believe God is your true provider, type the word trust in the comments, not as a slogan, but as a declaration. And share this message with someone who may be wrestling silently with financial fear. Because freedom begins when we let Jesus redefine what wealth really means.